Hey, what's going on? Thank you for tuning in to What's Going On. What's Going On is a program designed especially for you by Columbia Access Television. I'm your host, Bishop Lorenzo Lawson. I'm the host that love you the most, and we're going to have a wonderful time. What's Going On is a show that is here to inform you to what's going on in this community. I got a special guest in the studio, a good friend of mine. I call him my little big brother, Elder Jonathan Lowe. How you doing, Elder?
I'm good, Bishop. How you doing today?
Wonderful, wonderful. Before I get started, I wanted to just let you know that there's a couple of ways, and you will see these different means of contacting us. We are recording this live, and if you have some questions or comments that you want to make, you can contact us via email or our Twitter account. And those different accounts are on the screen. Today we're going to be talking about something very, very interesting and also dear to my heart because of what I have been called to do in the community, and that is to help the downcast and to fight injustice any way I possibly can. But also I'm here mainly because I want to help the young people. And one of the things that have been going on since I moved back to Columbia, I'm originally from Columbia, is that there have been an increase on youth violence. And my guest today is the coordinator of the Silence to Violence initiative. Welcome, Brother Jonathan.
Hey, thank you, Bishop Lawson. Always great to be in your presence, sir.
Beautiful. So let's just jump into the questions. How did this Silence to Violence start?
Bishop, this initiative, which is a part of the Columbia Community Nonviolence Initiative, CCNVI, the Silence to Violence movement is a portion of that. And it all started back in 2012. We, the Columbia community, experienced a great tragedy with the loss of a young man, 17 years old, here in the Columbia community. I believe his name was Mr. DeAndre Johnson. When he was gunned down right here in Columbia, over in the Douglas Park area, it really sent this entire community into shock. About a month later, a young man by the name of Brian Rankin Jr. was also gunned down on the north side of Columbia. But before then, after the passing of young DeAndre, Bishop Lester Woods and a couple of, who was my pastor at Urban Empowerment Ministries, and a couple of other community leaders, including yourself, came together and said there's something that has to be done for our children to be able to continue to survive and live in this community. So the Columbia Community Nonviolence Initiative was established, and the first meeting date to get the community's perspective, it was real important that we began an organization that had a community pull and community perspective. It's a grassroots project meaning we start with the public and the community and wanted to hear their thoughts. April the 10th was the day, that we were going to start that initial meeting where we invited the entire Columbia community to come out at the Armory over on Ash Street. And before that, Bishop, I had to do something that I've never had to do before in my life. And even though I'm a younger man, I'm 30 years old. I was 28 at the time. It broke my heart to stand over the body of Brian Rankin Jr., who was 17, and see the sanctuary filled with young people who were hurting, who were in pain, who were saddened, not just by the loss of their fellow brother, but also by the thought that they could be next. So that was on April the 7th. We sent him home in glory, what we consider it there in the church. And then on the 10th, we packed out the Armory and we heard from the community. And after that conversation, we came up with a couple of committees to talk about how we were going to approach this movement in Columbia. And then we set a date for April the 28th to do a march, a Silence to Violence march, where we will march in silence in honor, in memory, and in respect for the loved ones who we've lost up until that point.
So we're coming up on a 2-year anniversary of that march and even the deaths of these 2 young men. And I just recognized that just recently, not too long ago, we have experienced another young man who actually got killed here in Columbia, and that was tragic also. You were mentioning that a couple of committees came out of this meeting, but first, before we get there, you was alluding to how you felt being a young man yourself. Now, on this, because I want my audience to understand this whole picture. When we sent out the word that we was going to meet about trying to curtail this violence.
Yes, sir.
Who all showed up?
It's an interesting question, Bishop. As you know, as I stated, Mr. Johnson did pass, 17 years old, in the month of March. Before the passing of and the murder of Brian Rankin Jr., the conversation had begun. His passing just kind of confirmed that we were in need. When we held this meeting, we invited the entire Columbia community to come out. We did a press release. It was on the news. Flyers went out to all the organizations. We invited the entire community to come out. Who showed up at this meeting, Bishop, from your Columbia leadership positions and officials? You had the superintendent of schools was there. You had fire chief was there. Police officers were there. You had teachers from the local community were there. You had presidents of nonprofit organizations who assist in trying to provide service and welfare to our Columbia community. They were there. From the Columbia Housing Authority to Family Counseling Center, you name it.
United Way.
United Way was very integral. Youth Empowerment Zone was in the picture. You name it. Douglas High School, Rockbridge High School, the elementary schools had representatives here at this meeting because they wanted to hear and express their love and express their concern for the community. And most importantly, who we had attend were the families of those who had just lost their loved one and the community members in those neighborhoods.
If I recall, I think the mayor showed up, and there was some city council people there also. And then you said right after that initial meeting, the march was designed.
The march was set, yes, sir.
Give me some insight on how that was, the march, what was the plan of the march and where did it take place and what happened?
Bishop, that march was I think the first of its kind here in Columbia, and it was led, the head of the march committee. The head of the march committee was none other than our very own, the late Sister Warner Faye Elbert. And she just passed, and before during that time in 2012, it was very important to her that this march take place. So her and Sister Almeda Creighton, very integral in this event. The march started at City Hall, downtown Columbia. It went all the way down Ash Street, and it took a certain number of turns and curves into the community across Providence into the Columbia community, the area where DeAndre was gunned down, and then it came back across the street into the front lawn of Douglas High School. The guest speaker for that day and moderator for that day was Jeff Johnson, who is a BET analyst and CNN political analyst, and he really encouraged us to continue to push forward through this violent time. Bishop, we had about 850 people who were there in that march, and most importantly, about half of those were our young people, were our students, our babies, our children, who knew the importance of this initiative.
So you said Jeff Johnson. Why was he significant? What was the attraction to try to get a speaker like Jeff Johnson here?
Well, Jeff Johnson he's a national personality. He's a national spokesperson, and he has experience in moderating in communities such as, or facilitating conversation in communities such as Columbia who are dealing with violence on another level, on a level that they've not experienced. So he's bringing in the expertise from various other locations across this country where these initiatives have worked and have prospered. So he came in with a very fresh outlook, and most importantly, he came in encouraging the citizens of Columbia to continue to stay in the effort of nonviolence and silencing the violence. So he was very integral because he had a great perspective from all of his experience, and he also brought national attention to Columbia because of this march.
And of course, the young people could identify with him.
The young people definitely identify with him being on BET.
Okay, yeah. Now, since that time, what have, from that march, how did the movement grow?
From that march, at the march, we had a couple of forums. We had an opportunity fair, or where people came to offer employment opportunities and training to our young people.
Why is that significant?
We feel like a lot of the violence that took place is because our young people really don't have anything else to do, anything to motivate them. So if we can put them in position to receive the necessary training to become competitive and eligible for employment, and in some cases offer them employment. There are a lot of employment opportunities in fields where young people are needed and their skills are needed, and you don't always have to, and this may not be a popular statement, you don't have to go to a 4-year college and obtain a bachelor's degree to become gainfully employed.
Right.
Sometimes you have to go to a trade school.
Sure.
Sometimes you have to be trained in a certain area in order to fulfill a task, like with the Department of Transportation and on-site construction training. That's a great and lucrative opportunity for young people to get involved.
Somebody, and I kind of recall reading that a lot of those type of crimes is also economically motivated, in the sense that majority of the victims and the perpetrators are victims of poverty.
That is true.
And so I know that was a great ideal to try to offer those opportunities, especially for employment, because it seems to me that if they're not offered a positive alternative to earning gainful income, then they're gonna resort to negative means. So that was very commendable. Now, bringing it up to date. From there, you said that there was a couple meetings done.
Yes.
That was done.
Yes.
What else? I mean, I know that that particular summer, there was some things that went on. What were some of those things?
Well, we did, in an effort to continue to include the community, by all means, this is not a one person or one group of people organization. It's the Columbia Community Nonviolence Initiative, meaning we encourage the entire Columbia community. So as a part of that, there were different committees that were set up, one being the Communications Committee, another being the Activities Committee, another being the Marketing Committee, and another being the Youth Committee. And a Parent Committee. I forgot about that one, the Parent Committee. Those different committees set out on their individual tasks to inform the community, to enlighten the community, and to empower the community, as well as to listen to the community. So we brought together our young people, and we said, what is it that you want to do? What is it that you would like to do? And the one thing that they really appreciated was in extracurricular activity was getting more information, more knowledge, tutoring help with their education, but also there was a boxing club that they wanted to be a part of. They wanted to learn how to be trained for self-defense, which is no different that we saw than anybody who plays any other extracurricular activity or sport, whether it be football or basketball or soccer, whatever contact sport it may be. So the young people said, we want to be a part of the boxing club. We want to learn how to box. And there's a great boxing club and a great opportunity for that here in Columbia. So over that summer, we went out we did block parties in various communities to get their input, to invite them out. We had police officers there, resource officers were there. I believe the mayor even showed up to one of those events. And then through that season, we were just staying in continuous contact with our young people and trying to help them begin to lead this effort and help other community leaders begin to lead this effort. So the Silence the Violence movement became a conduit, or shall I say, it became a liaison between the community and community events.
Okay.
So we would hear what the community was already offering, because there were already a lot of things taking place. Mm-hmm. We would just get the information to the community. Mm-hmm. So in the effort for our young people to be able to hear those opportunities and engage in them.
Well, I recall too that when another event that came out of that, I think it was a fashion show or something, wasn't it?
The fashion show did take place. It
Mm-hmm.
did take place. It was over at Parkade Plaza. Young people said they wanted to get into a little high fashion. So we had a lot of young people who participated in that. They organized it, they set it up, they emceed and hosted it. They had a piece in it, and it was very successful at Parkade Plaza. Mm-hmm. We also did a benefit banquet where we recognized all of our Columbia community sponsors and the community leaders, such as Bishop Woods and such as yourself, Bishop. Mm-hmm. It was a great event in the month of November. And the objective and the theme for that was box out violence. And we raised enough to help us be in position that when the boxing club is prepared, we are ready to put our piece in there by purchasing the ring.
Yes. So again, bringing it up to date, what's planned for the future for Silence the Violence and Columbia Community Coalition?
The next movement at this point, Bishop, is to continue to be that liaison of information and to come back together this summer. Mm-hmm. We've talked about doing something this summer in the park, in Douglas Park, and in various parks for a back to school block party. So we will see. We are in the process of pulling all our pieces together at the moment, and we really want to try to bring in some outside talent who can really encourage and engage our young people. And we have talent right here. Mm-hmm. Brian Rankin Jr.'s youngest brother, Brandon Rankin, is a very successful musician here in the community. Thinking about having him come in and participate and stand on the platform of nonviolence.
That's wonderful. We are thinking about perhaps because the violence is still happening, and it's being a member of the mayor's task force against violence. We are looking at some other situation. Have you or anyone from the movement thought about coming before that task force and maybe inputting on some of the ideas and solutions that you guys are coming up with?
Of course, Bishop. We definitely have spoken and thought about that, and we are in the process of making sure that the task force gets up and moving, and then how can we support it? We want to be a portion of support to it in any shape, fashion, or form. We do have a couple of people who are involved in the Silence the Violence movement who are on the task force and who are part of the task force. And they are giving us reports about how it's moving forward. And we just want to make sure when we fit into what the mayor is going to do in this city with this task force, that we fit in the right manner, the right way to be a great support to that area, to that arena.
Praise it. Well, you know, I'm very thankful that you stopped by, took some time out of your busy schedule to stop by and give us an update on what's going on with Silence the Violence. You know, personally, that is a dear movement to me. As you said, I was Bishop Woods called me and said, "Man, we got to do something." And that was the birth of that movement as we went forward on that. And one of the things that someone asked me, you know, well, why are you doing all of this? And as I started off the show with what's going on, what's going on in this community is very dear to me for a few reasons. Number one, I'm a native of Columbia. I was born and raised here. And this community is my community. And when I was growing up, it was a place where you could really enjoy being a part of the community. We didn't witness none of this type of young people on young people crime and deaths and things. And it was a community, I guess, like a little Mayberry or something where you could ride your bicycle anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, people, neighbors slept with the doors open in the summertime. You know, and everybody know everybody.
Very peaceful.
Well, you know, Columbia is such a wonderful town that people found out about it and started moving here. And some of the folks that moved here came from some areas where they brought some of their habits with them. And one of the habits, that I believe is this violence. If you're a product of violence, then that's how you operate.
Yeah.
And a lot of them had experienced violence in their neighborhood at a very early age, and it's the norm. So my whole take on it is the fact that, number one, I'm from this community. Number two, I was one of those young people at one time. I was in the violence. Grew up in the Columbia Housing Authority with a single parent mom, a victim of poverty, and didn't know no better.
Right.
I didn't have no mentors, didn't have no positive role models in my life. So I made some bad decisions and did some things that I regret. And my whole purpose is when God brought me into his loving arms and I began to see the difference and I accept Jesus as my Lord and Savior.
Crucial.
That's when my life changed and I began to I wanted to be a part of the cause and not the problem.
Yeah.
And so that's the reason why I'm out there on a daily basis in this community, trying to do whatever I can to bring solution to this. And it seems to me that God is bringing people like yourself, and we are connecting because I believe in the old African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child.
It does.
Well, I believe that it takes a village to correct all the wrong in the village.
That is true.
So that's where we're at. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to what's going on. It's been a delight. I know it's been short, and we're going to have to invite Elder Lowe back sometime. But thank you for tuning in. And be sure to tune in to what's going on throughout the week. We will be re-airing the show on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8:30 and on Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Look at your local cable channel. I think it's 85 on Mediacom. I believe it's 95 on Central Link and 198 on Charter. So thank you. God bless you. And remember, I'm the host that love you the most. Thank you.